current negotiations for potential Terence Bud Crawford and Kell Brook basically realistically fight in November. We're going to talk about it. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Make sure you smash the like button. Also, subscribe to my channel for the latest and greatest in boxing. Now, ESPN, you see this link. It says talks underway for Terence Crawford, Kell Brook, November 14th. Bob Arum says. Link in the description. Discussions are underway for WBO welterweight champ Terence Crawford to face IBF former champion Kell Brook, November 14th, according to Top Rank's Bob Arum. Bob said that Kell Brook is a free agent and we're discussing a Crawford fight with the Kell Brook people. That's on top of our wish list. The veteran promoter had been attempting to tie together a deal for Crawford to face Manny Pacquiao in the Middle East, but ultimately hasn't been successful. Arum says, I don't think it's going to be possible this year, maybe next year, said Arum. We're working on it. We had to go ahead to do it, but then the Minister of Health said not this year, look to do it next year. Crawford is considered one of the best fighters in the sport, but has been challenged in securing a career-defying fight. Brook, it says in a Brook fight, he'd face a boxer who only has 2 losses against Triple G and Errol Spence, yada, yada, yada. So that's the skinny of it. And I want to give my thoughts. Personally, I have mixed feelings about it. One, stylistically, I don't think it's a bad fight. Kell Brook, you know, I guess the reason I have mixed feelings is Kell Brook. I don't know what version of Kell Brook we really have, because he stepped up to the middleweight category, fought Golovkin, held his own in spots, but he was hurt in the first round, rallied back in the second round, but ultimately he was stopped in the 5th round or so, and he had his orbital shattered. Then his next fight, after having a medical extension and surgery, his next fight was against a guy he should have been fighting before Golovkin, and a guy who had been rising through the ranks that we needed to see tested, which is now superstar Errol Spence, who has a big fight on PBC, Fox PBC, in November 21st against Danny Garcia. So Errol Spence fought Kell Brook, bashed in his other eye, being a southpaw. So both of Brook's eyes have been like fractured and damaged in recent memory. So Terence Crawford, you know, fighting Kell Brook, I don't know. I don't know what version we have, because since then Kell Brook said after the Errol Spence, see you guys, my memory is crazy. After the Errol Spence fight, Kell Brook said he couldn't make welterweight for the Spence fight, and he wasn't at his true weight. He could no longer make welterweight, so he moved up to 54. So he made excuses for losing to Errol Spence, but now all of a sudden he's coming back to 147 and he can make it years later. So that's not a good sign for a fighter. When he lost to Errol Spence, again, he made an excuse, said, so basically, I'm not at mid-true weight, and weight was too damaging, make it weight. But now years later, he's right back in that position. Now, the Rabchenko, he got a stoppage. In his last fight, he got a stoppage. But in between, he had a fight with Michael Zarafa, who Jeff Horn stopped. And Jeff Horn just quit versus Tim Tszyu, right? And that Michael Zarafa fight, a guy Peter Quillen knocked out, right? And people on PBC said Peter Quillen was cherry picking when he fought Michael Zarafa. But Kell Brook did not look good and struggled in that fight for whatever reason. So now him coming back down to 147, I don't know. So I don't know what version of Kell Brook is left. If he shows up in great shape and he can make weight and things like that, stylistically, Kell Brook at his best, it's an interesting fight. But I don't know how much credit Terence Crawford is going to get from fans for a fight like this. But, you know, it's not the worst thing out there either. Kell Brook's a bigger name, in my opinion, than Mean Machine or some of the guys like that. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see what the reaction is from people. But I also think Bud Crawford's team are making it hard on him, because Bomac discounted fights with Kell Brook and even Keith Thurman, stating that Keith Thurman doesn't have a belt. Well, guess what? Kell Brook don't have a belt. And Thurman had a respectable loss to a Hall of Famer in Pacquiao. Thurman did good in the back half of that fight. You see what I'm saying? He hurt Pacquiao in the back half of the fight, but he himself was hurt and dropped in the first round, and he got hurt to the body late. So that kind of, Pacquiao rightfully won. But nonetheless, he had a good showing. It wasn't bad. Started off kind of rocky. Pacquiao was doing good. Pacquiao slowed down a bit, and Keith Thurman, got back to his basics. And it was a fun fight. So there's no real shame in that. Kell Brook hasn't had a significant win against a big name in a while. Keith Thurman in recent memory has beaten Danny Garcia. He's beaten Sean Porter, who looked like a handful for anybody on his last fight on Fox, who he was levels above the Sebastian Formella dude. So again, Bud Crawford's team and his people have made it harder because they said they only want Errol Spence and they only wanted Manny Pacquiao, which I said both of those things are unrealistic. And Top Rank has pulled this trick before where they'll pit whatever fighter, like their bigger names, and they'll have this smorgasbord of various fights that the fans would possibly want to see and people are clamoring for. And they'll say all these things like, oh, Pacquiao could fight Danny Garcia, years ago when he was with Top Rank. Pacquiao could fight Lucas Matisse years ago when Matisse was looking like a beast. He might fight Ruslan Provodnikov. He might fight Amir Khan in Dubai, yada, yada, yada. He might fight Adrian Broner. Not when they fought last year, but years ago when he was with Top Rank, right? And then out of all these names, they would throw in a name like Tim Bradley or Jesse Vargas as well. And you can bet your last dollar that the least favored name amongst fans, that would be the guy that Pacquiao actually fought. Like the fight that was easier, that they could actually facilitate and would facilitate, would be Pacquiao Bradley 3 that no one asked for. But they're saying that Pacquiao could fight all these names. They've also used Pacquiao in Crawford's name, but never made that fight when they were with Top Rank. So I told you guys on my channel, I keep getting this right. Ego Stradamus strikes again. If Pacquiao was with Top Rank and Michael Conks and the whole system, the Top Rank, he was integrated in the Top Rank system, and HBO wanted the fight when they were still around in boxing, and Crawford Pacquiao never happened, then what's the likelihood that in the year of a pandemic where there's no crowds, businesses have lost money and been, had months where they couldn't operate under normal circumstances and capacities, how are they going to get this fight done? And as you see, this is exactly why I'm changing the game, whether people want to realize it or not. This is exactly why you see on my channel, New Media, we create the narrative. We control the narrative. I didn't make no videos about Crawford and Pacquiao when the rumors were coming out, because I knew this was going to be the case. They were going to link Crawford and say he's going to fight Pacquiao in Dubai or Saudi Arabia and got big offers. But now look at this article. Now you look at the article and Bob Arum is saying something different. I don't think it's possible to be made this year, maybe next year. Exactly. So when people were utilizing their platforms to talk about, in my opinion, foolish things, like, and this is not a shot at anyone, I'm just telling you how I'm doing stuff right here on my channel. People were talking about Pacquiao Golovkin. I knew that fight wasn't going to happen. People were talking about Crawford Pacquiao. I knew the fight wasn't going to happen. And if it did, I would just be pleasantly surprised and be wrong. And if I'm wrong on account of boxing doing the right thing, then let it be that. I'm good with those odds. But it didn't look likely. Like I said, Crawford and Pacquiao were on the same stable. They were both aligned with the same imprint, and the fight never happened. So in a pandemic year, what leads me to believe that they were going to get it done in Dubai with travel bans, and the Teofimo Lomachenko almost faced blowback from fans and almost fell out over money. So how are they going to get the money for that particular fight? That's why I didn't entertain that, and this is an old promotional trick. We've seen it with Top Rank. They'll link so-and-so's name, Pacquiao, Crawford, to these attractive fights that people want to see. But then when it comes down to it, that's not the fight that gets made. It'll be Pacquiao Bradley 3, Pacquiao Brandon Rios off a loss, Pacquiao Algieri, Pacquiao, whoever, Jesse Vargas, Pacquiao, Jeff Horn. But they kept clout chasing Pacquiao's name with Floyd Mayweather and all these attractive fights, like I said, PBC guys, Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, and none of them happened at those points in time. So, it's a shame for Crawford. I think the only thing eluding him, he's a skilled fighter, is the difficult fight. He's fought difficult fights and difficult styles, but the difficult fight attached to the big brand and the big name. And that's because most of the guys are across the street with PBC. And then, like I said, Bomac, good dude, but Bomac has made it harder as well because he has basically ostracized every other opponent, in true Bob Arum fashion, where like, oh, we're not fighting this guy because they don't bring nothing to the table. Why we want to waste a training camp on them? But that's the attitude. But then now Bob Arum is saying Crawford's not fighting Pacquiao and it won't happen maybe next year. So they keep stringing that along, and we're supposed to hold out hope that this gets done. I told you, show me. Don't tell me, show me, right? And then Errol Spence, I told you that's not realistic. He is already booked. He has a fight in November, right? Fox, PBC. It's a done deal. It's an official fight. And the crazy thing is, Bomac made that interview after the fight was already publicly announced. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like the fight got announced after. Look, boom. This is Fox PBC. Errol Spence, Danny Garcia, November 21st, 9 p.m. Eastern on pay-per-view. So we knew this was happening. And when Bomac did the interview with TBV, this was already a known thing. And he still said, we only want Pacquiao or Errol Spence. Keith Thurman, he ain't got no belt. We ain't trying to waste no camp on him. But how can you not waste a camp on guys like Keith Thurman? Ray Robinson keeps screaming on Crawford's name and said, I won and beat him in the amateurs. He's made fights difficult for guys like Mean Machine, who Crawford did fight. Josh Kelly, he arguably won those fights, right? He lost to a great fighter in you guys, and he holds an amateur win. But they totally discounted guys like that. Keith Thurman, they say Gary Russell's too little. Sean Porter's a friend, so we're not interested in him. Now is not the right time, according to Sean Porter. He said that's what Team Crawford said. Like I said, Bomac trashed the Kell Brook fight and Keith Thurman fight. But now look at it. Now we're back at square one. So it's like, how could you, it just don't make sense. The bottom line is it don't make sense. It doesn't make sense to say Keith Thurman ain't got no belt. Why should we fight him and take this harsh stance? But then you're going to fight another guy who hasn't even been fighting at welterweight like that, hasn't been active, and also doesn't have a belt, and Kell Brook, because the show must go on. Crawford got to stay active. That's why these talking points are weird from Team Crawford, So that's what it is. Me personally, Terence Crawford, Kell Brook, I don't have a huge problem with the fight. It is what it is. They're getting him who they can get him. He's obviously not aligned with the PBC, so this is a named fighter. But the biggest issue is to have said that we only want Errol Spence and we only want Manny Pacquiao, and then totally write off everybody else. That doesn't make sense, because in the end, these are the same group of guys you have to pick from, or you have to pick a lesser fighter or a less impressive fighter, or a fighter who's looked less impressive recently, and then now you're going to fight them, but you couldn't fight Keith Thurman. The Porter fight didn't make sense because he ain't got no belt. Keith Thurman fight didn't make sense because he ain't got no belt, but neither does Kell Brook. Neither did Mean Machine. Amir Khan damn sure didn't have a belt, and that was pay-per-view. So I told you this was going to be a dead end with those talking points. It's just what it is, I think they even said you guys don't make sense because he ain't got a belt. So it's just, now they're back at square one talking about Kell Brook, who had 2 damaged eyes. Keith Thurman at least never been stopped. Kell Brook, his losses, he's been stopped in both of them. And he took eye damage. And he said he couldn't make 147. So personally, if it came down to it, I'd rather see Crawford versus Porter or Crawford versus Keith Thurman well before. But again, Bomac took a stance like Bob Arum. Bob Arum at a point in time says, The only PBC guy we're interested, we only want Errol Spence. That's what Bob Arum said. But again, taking these harsh stances, it makes you look bad in the end, because when you don't get those fights, or you can't get those fights, then you got to go back and revert to some guy you already bashed, or a level of fighter that you said you weren't trying to fight, you know? So a bit confusing from Team Crawford. Let me know what you think of Kell Brook versus Crawford. Drop your thoughts in the comment section. As always, hate, comment, and subscribe. Till next video is Ego signing off. What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more sports. Get unlimited access to premium content with an ESPN Plus subscription. ESPN Plus offers a variety of content, including specials, behind the scenes, docuseries like Bruce Lee's Be Water, and much more. With an ESPN Plus subscription, you get access to a ton of classic archive fights and replays from boxing and the UFC. Big names like, "Hi, I'm Mike Tyson. Come and watch my fight." Floyd Mayweather, "Easy work. I'm rich." And Manny Pacquiao, "Yes, it's up to my promoter. Just to name a few. If that's not enough, you could get the ESPN bundle, which includes ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus. All 3 apps, one low price. You don't want to miss out. Make sure you guys click that link in the description box of all of my videos. Ego signing off. So if you enjoyed this video and want more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by going to the PayPal donate button or the YouTube support button, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Much more to come. Thank you guys for your support. Boxing Ego, the future of boxing.